Hello, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of Viking Sports Today. I'm Jacob Netsport, joined here by Jackie Bonowitz, Ryan Conlon, and a very special guest, Mr. Bob Wischusen. Bob, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Doing good, doing good. So we have a couple questions for you about broadcasting, your broadcasting career, and then everybody will ask a question after that. So,
Sure.
Jack, if you want to get it started, go ahead.
What was it like being a student athlete here at UC?
I would say calling me a student athlete would be real, like put athlete in quotes. That would be a very, very liberal definition of athlete. I played golf. I don't know if you guys consider golfers athletes.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, good. I
Golf's a tough
thought
sport.
so. Yeah, I
It's a
mean,
tough
you walk
sport.
6 miles carrying your
Very hard
bag.
sport.
Yeah,
Very
some
hard
athleticism involved. Yeah, I wasn't dunking. I certainly wasn't running like, a 10-second, 100-yard dash like I was, a golfer. But it was a lot of fun. I mean, I loved my experience with the golf team. And I spent a lot of time in the performing arts company as well. That was like my other main extracurricular activity.
So you have a favorite memory from that, from either from golf, performing arts, or something from Union Catholic that you
Yeah,
carry?
I mean, my I guess probably signature athletic accomplishment, if there ever was one, was when I was a senior. I won the county golf championship, so it was like nice to win a tournament. But a couple of the guys from that team, like one of the guys that I played with, is still one of my best friends to this day. So the camaraderie more than anything else. Golf is a sport where it's a lot about being with your friends, and I remember that more than anything.
I know you mentioned earlier that you have that you're a parent of 2 UC students. So
Three, actually,
three,
right
three.
now, yeah.
So what's it like to be in that position?
It's surreal, especially since all 3 of them are already more accomplished doing things here than I ever was. So that's great. My oldest son, at least here, Jimmy, was just named the Gatorade cross-country athlete of the year for New Jersey. So my twins that are freshmen both played soccer in the fall, and one's now in the performing arts company. Corey, has a part in the play, and Benny's on the freshman basketball team. And so it is very strange being a UC grad and now having kids here. Yeah, and now being a
Wow.
UC parent.
I mean, UC's been such a big part of your life. So is there anything? I mean, you graduated from here too. So is there anything from UC that you carry into your career today?
Sure. I mean, all the relationships that we made here. It seems like every member of my family at one time or another either went here, worked here, or both. My father is still the one in the tuition office that's, counting the checks up. So, this place has always been, since my parents first made the decision in 1985, I guess it was, to send me here as a freshman, has always been a very central part of our family's life.
Was broadcasting always like a dream from when you were like a little kid, or was it something that like you gained over time? Like when you were like 13, 14, then you became
Yeah, it was something that for whatever reason I always knew I wanted to do. I don't know why. I was drawn to the broadcasters when I was 7 years old as much as I was the athletes. It just seemed to be a great way to be a part of the game, and an exciting broadcast made the game that much better. I also, I think, realized at a very, very young age that I was not going to be a professional athlete, so if I wanted to be in any way, shape, or form involved in sports, it probably would have to be as a broadcaster. So, yeah, but it was like I could probably name the broadcasters of the teams that I grew up rooting for when I was 7 or 8 years old just as easily as I could rattle off the names of the players.
So I know this is kind of a broad question, but out of all the sports you broadcasted, could you pinpoint maybe one moment that you really felt was really special to you?
Yeah, I mean, there have been a few. Like, obviously, as a Jets broadcaster, what leaps to mind is, going back to 2009, 2010 when they went to the 2 championship games, and in 2009 when they went up to New England and beat the Patriots, and the Bart Scott can't wait game when they were, like nobody thought they had a chance to win that game, and that was really exciting. They had some really fun playoff wins when I first started doing the games back in the early 2000s. And I've had some experiences at ESPN that have been great as well. Like I've called the Sugar Bowl, the Fiesta Bowl, the Cotton Bowl, the Orange Bowl. I've called Big 12 basketball championship games and hockey playoffs now. I've called Game 7s. I called a Game 7 on back-to-back nights a couple of years ago a Game 7 in Calgary and a Game 7 in Edmonton, and both games went right down to the end, and one of the games was an overtime game. So, I don't take opportunities like that for granted.
Is there one moment, though, that you're able to pinpoint as your favorite moment that you've called?
I would say probably that Jet Patriot playoff game, that everybody identifies the Bart Scott can't wait game. You guys were babies back then, basically, but it was that long ago. But yeah, they were like 18-point underdogs or something and went up there and won in the playoffs. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, you could go.
So what was your favorite, like, when you watched, like, a team, like, when you're about to call a team, what was that athlete that you knew, like, okay, there's going to be a game that, like, that's going to be kind of iconic?
Would I know a game was – the great part about sports is a lot of times you don't know the game is going to be iconic ahead of time. Like, a game might become iconic while you're having a chance to call it. We all thought, for instance, that Jet Patriot game, who didn't think that was probably going to be the Patriots winning by 20 and blowing them out? They had beaten the Jets earlier that year, I think 45-3 on Monday Night Football. So, to me, that's the great part about sports is I don't necessarily know what games are going to be iconic or remembered or, are going to have that kind of like all-time feel before the game is played. You're hoping and you're always keeping your fingers crossed you get lucky enough that you get one like that.
So I know it's kind of a rocky road for the Jets this year, but if you could pick a favorite memory from this season, watching them play, what would that be?
Yeah, there were a couple. probably opening night.
Yeah.
Right?
Return.
To win a game like that in overtime, a walk-off win was great.
Especially after what went down that
Yep.
night. Yeah.
The game against the Eagles where they took the ball away 4 times and, gave the Eagles their first loss. And through 11 games this year, the Eagles were 10-1, and their only loss was to the Jets. So, even in a down year, there's always a game or two that's unexpected and a lot of fun. And they absolutely had some unexpected games that were a lot of fun.
What was this Jets season like, going into it with all the hype? Hard Knocks is there. What is it like going into a season differently than really any in a long time?
Yeah, obviously 4 plays into the season, the entire trajectory of it changed completely. And I'm hoping that next year or this coming year, we will get to experience what we thought we were going to get to experience this past year, which is watching Aaron Rodgers play and seeing if what we think is a really good team is actually a quarterback away. They think they are if they can shore up the offensive line. So, but yeah, there's no doubt that the entire, roadmap of the season went completely in a different direction based on what happened on opening night, because if you go back to 2 years ago, they were basically sending the entire world the message from 2 years ago to last year, we think we're really, really good. We just need a great quarterback. That's what you're telling the world if you go out and get Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll have a chance to see him. And he's going to have a big chip on his shoulder this year.
Oh, yeah.
He's really going to want to prove to everyone that he's back and can still do this.
Not to put you on the spot here, but did you think that move was something that would take the Jets to that next level?
Sure.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah. I
know there's some people that didn't believe in it completely.
Oh, no, I did. Yeah, and I think the fact that they won 7 games this past year without him shows you they easily – by anybody's even not subjective, objective measure, they probably would have been anywhere from a 10 to 12 win team with him. Right? There were at least a handful of games that had they had him instead of any one of the other 3 quarterbacks that they played, they probably would have won. They have a top 5 defense. They need an offensive line overhaul, and they need him to stay healthy. And if those 2 things happen, they have everything else necessary to be really good.
Yeah, like that Falcons game came to mind where the offense kind of sputtered a little bit. I think if
Sure.
you have Rodgers in that position, you easily win that game.
Yep.
There's just a few that come to
The
mind.
Patriot game at home. Now you could rattle off at least 5 or 6 games where the defense over and over and over and over again was giving the offense a chance, and the offense just wasn't good enough to get over the hump.
All right, well, we'll take a short break here. We'll be right back with another segment just after this. And we're back here on Viking Sports Today. So now we got a bit of a rapid-fire segment. Ryan Bokina first up here. Ryan, go ahead with your question.
So thank you for coming, Mr. Wischusen.
Sure.
So my first question will be for you. What are your hopes, expectations, or I mean, this is like, sort of three questions, but, what are your like hopes, expectations, or, records for, the Jets next year, your predictions?
Well, I mean, as the jumping off point, you have to think Aaron Rodgers. So without knowing what other players are going to add, who they've drafted, how the offensive line is going to look, if we just go on the assumption Aaron Rodgers is going to be healthy, then I think what's very fair is to assume that they'll be a playoff team and they'll be a team that will be in the discussion of who could get to the Super Bowl if they're healthy. And I think that's fair to expect. I mean, I think he's that much of a difference maker, and I think the defense is that good. They've proven that. So, yeah, I don't think it's unfair at all to think that now will they be better than Kansas City, better than Buffalo? Like, who knows? That it's hard to, off of like all these below 500 seasons, to disrespect those teams that way. But they should at least be in the discussion.
So, given that, Aaron Rodgers stays healthy next season, do you think the vocal point will be, or the point where, this team really takes the next level, do you think that will be from the offense and Aaron Rodgers, or you still think, the defense will stay strong from this year?
Yeah, but it has to be complementary. Like, the offense has to hold up their end. The defense has shown over the last 2 years, especially with the guys they drafted 2 years ago, that they are legitimately a top 5 defense. And if you're a top 5 defense, then all you're asking your offense to do is be average. And you can be an 11 or 12 win team. And what offense shouldn't at least perform at or above what anyone would say is average if Aaron Rodgers is their quarterback? So, like, it's complementary, right? Like, the offense should feed off the defense and vice versa.
So, lastly, just real quick, just give me like a record for the Jets next year. What do you think?
I think 11 or 12 wins is definitely doable if he stays healthy and the guys around him are healthy as well, right? Catastrophic injuries, anything can happen in football, but if they have reasonable injuries to, which this past year, especially on the offensive line, it got unreasonable real fast and they lost him for the whole year. If he stays healthy and the guys around him are healthy enough, yeah, I think they can be an 11 or 12 win team.
All right, thank you for your time.
Absolutely.
Colton Ruffalo up next. Colton, if you want to give your question here.
Pass the headset. You got it.
Hello, Bob.
Hi.
My question to you is that how do you think the Mets can perform going into the next season, especially with their new signings and who they have with their current roster?
I would like to say I'm optimistic, maybe cautiously optimistic. I mean, their rotation, to me, has enough question marks. Like, if they get yes answers to everything, great. I think their best hope is probably to be a wild card team.
I could definitely see that. I think they're still growing. I think they could still make more trades, I think, in the offseason. So
They could.
Yeah, your thoughts on that?
I guess as a Met fan, I've been a little disappointed that Steve Cohen becoming the owner was, the pitch that we were all given was that they were basically going to do what the Dodgers have done, right? Like, they were going to throw every single dollar that they could at the top talent and bring them all in, and that hasn't really happened. So that is why, again, when I look at what the Dodgers have done, I look in their own division. Atlanta is still really, really good. Maybe they'll be a wild card team. I don't know that I can get my hopes up for anything more than that.
I could see wild card, but they did throw a lot of their money towards their pitchers last year with Max Scherzer and Verlander, but that obviously didn't work.
Did not work out.
That was a tough scene for Mets and Yankees, I think. But I think New York as a whole has definitely upgraded going into the new season.
Let's keep our fingers crossed you're right.
Exactly.
All right, Colton, thank you. We will move on now. Sean coming on to talk about college football. This question is going to be one that we debated a lot, and hopefully you'll get a good answer here
Okay.
from Bob. One that we debated a lot on the show.
All right, Mr. Wischusen. So my question to you is, what is your opinion on Florida State not making the college football playoffs?
Ultimately, the committee, I guess, was proven right because of what happened in their bowl game. Having said that, though, I thought it stunk. To me, I think when that committee made the decision that we're always told football's the ultimate team game, right? It's not about one guy. It is the ultimate team game. And the message that you're sending to all of the guys on that team is because one guy got hurt, everything else that you guys did doesn't matter because it must have all been him. And, you know, that must have been a really devastating message for them to hear. So, you know, I guess in the end, if the mission statement is get the 4 best teams, it's hard to say that Florida State was one of the 4 best teams based on what happened in their bowl game. But, you know, to me, what happens during the regular season, what happens on the field and being undefeated should matter.
Yeah, I completely agree. I also think about it like it's also from like a marketing standpoint and like a money-making standpoint. That's why they did it because Florida State, in my opinion, I think they deserve to make it, but it's just because they want to make all the money. The 4 best teams. It wouldn't have been entertaining. That's all it is.
That's their mission statement.
Yeah.
Again, they'll say like it doesn't matter, you know. We're not thinking in terms of conference. We're not thinking in terms of, like, you know, who would be the sexy matchup. You're supposed to pick the 4 best teams. That's their job. I guess they can say that they did that, again, based on what happened in the Orange Bowl. But when a team goes undefeated in a power league, and what I also like about what we saw, we will never have to worry about that again because the team's never going undefeated again and being left out of a 12-team playoff. So hopefully going forward, we'll always have the ability to just have the team settle it on the field.
Yeah. All right, thank
All
you.
right, Sean, thank you. We'll go to Zach now, talk about his coveted Dallas Cowboys.
Oh, boy.
So I'm a big Dallas Cowboys fan, right?
Sorry.
Obviously, the playoffs have not been kind to us the past few years.
Well, I call the
Well,
Jet
not
game,
past
so I would take playoffs.
Yeah. Jerry Jones said about a week ago he expects to go all in this offseason. Do you think that this is the year the Cowboys do that and get over that hump?
They've had the talent level every year to be that team. Like, when has he not gone all in? When have they denied their team resources or money or – so, I mean, all right, I don't know how going all in is going to look different for him next year than it's looked any of the previous years. And if Dak Prescott's still the quarterback, then that's still a question that he has to answer. Can he eventually win that game? Because he never really has.
Yeah, I mean, I think a player like Derrick Henry is perfect for this team. Do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Derrick Henry at this point is probably going to be kind of a role player. I think he'd be a great complement to Pollard. But, look, I don't think of bringing Derrick Henry as going all in, right? Like, I don't know. To me, the Cowboys have never done anything other than go all in. It's just they have been one of those teams that gets agonizingly close with this quarterback and can never get over the hump.
Yeah, I mean, there's been players like last year, I feel like DeAndre Hopkins. That's what all the fans wanted. That's what people were saying. Like, players like that, I think, is what he means. Like,
I guess. I mean, if you look at their passing numbers, they're pretty good during the regular season. Nobody thinks the Cowboys are going to go into the postseason and have a hard time scoring. So that, to me, is kind of playing the result of the postseason rather than – but, again, to me, Jerry Jones is always someone that goes all in. I don't know what all in looks like to him, but it certainly looks like to me from the outside he doesn't hold anything back.
Yeah.
All right, Zach, thank you. We'll bring on Jack Yablonowitz here. Good question about a venue that call a lot of games at. Jack, go ahead.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. So you were a Knicks and Rangers guy. So what's Madison Square Garden like to you? Like, I would bring up a lot of questions, but I think Madison Square Garden, you could speak for yourself on what, like that, how loud it is. You know, the Knicks and Rangers, I heard the Rangers are good. I don't really know, but I heard they're good as well. But how does that kind of MSG just
the Garden has a vibe all its own to me. The way they light it, it looks like a Broadway stage that the players are playing on. There's an energy in it. And both teams being really, really good right now brings it back to like when I was in college, which was the last time that both teams were really good. I mean, you have to go back to like the mid-'90s, the last time that, or the early 2000s, the last time that certainly the Knicks were this good, and the Rangers, when a Ranger playoff game is in the third period and it's tied and it's sold out, there's no place like it. So, to me, Madison Square Garden is, at least at the pro level, as good as it gets.
Like, so the Knicks first, I know this because the Knicks first playoff game, like since like 2012, was against the Hawks, COVID year. Now, it was the first time they said, okay, no, we're going to take off the no fans and we're going to go and have fans. The crowd was electric. I mean, the first game, they did lose the Hawks, but like, how calling that game and the crowd being electric, does that kind of like, change it at all?
It does, especially if you're doing TV. Radio, you have to call everything, but if you're doing television and you're in an atmosphere like that, a lot of times you talk a lot less because you want the atmosphere to come through the screen and you don't want to necessarily talk over it. So if I'm in an atmosphere like that, yeah, I lay out a lot, especially at basketball that gives you opportunities to lay out and let the crowd do the work for you.
All right, Jack, thank you. We'll bring on Ryan Parmenter for his question. Hello, Ryan.
Hello. So, Mr. Schusen, who would you say has been the biggest disappointment in the NHL this year?
Right to it.
Biggest disappointment in the NHL this year. I mean, the first month of the season was probably Edmonton, and now they might be the biggest success story because what have they won, 15 or 16 in a row? Probably Pittsburgh to this point. They brought all of those guys back. It looks like they're going to miss the playoffs. If I had to guess, I don't think they're going to be a playoff team. And they, like if you bring back that whole group, the Letang, Malkin, Crosby, add Carlson, like you're sending the message, we still think this group's good enough to go for it. And they clearly are not. So I would say they probably, to this point, at least to me, would probably be the biggest disappointment.
Because in my opinion, I think it would be the Devils, because they were a high seed last year.
Yep.
They had a great series against my Rangers, and then they just completely fell apart. I went to a Devils game against Edmonton. They lost 6-3 or something like that. They allowed 3 goals in I think 30 seconds.
Yeah, the Devils. I would give the Devils a little bit of an injury break. Like Dougie Hamilton being out for almost the entire season. Hughes being hurt for the portion of the year he was. I think Heishier was hurt. The goaltending has not been good.
That's the issue.
So, to me, yes, there are disappointing elements to them. I still think the Devils are good enough to rebound and be a playoff team. I don't expect Pittsburgh to make it.
Yeah, I can see that, because I mean, Pittsburgh, they're obviously past their prime. I mean, they were absolutely dominant in the 2010s, and I think their reign of terror is finally over. Like, unless they can get like a young piece, I think they're gonna have to just hit rebuild mode.
Yeah, and if you're a hockey fan, like you really have to be in the weeds, I'm sure, to follow all the teams. Calgary is a huge disappointment as well, because they made the trade with Tkachuk. They brought in Jonathan Huberdeau. They brought in Mackenzie Weegar. They signed Nazem Kadri. Like, they kind of went from, we're going to lose Johnny Gaudreau, we're going to lose Tkachuk, but we're just going to reload and win. And they're about to probably not be a playoff team again, with a couple of guys that were studs when they were in Florida, and have just not been that for them. So I would probably put them up there as like the Western Conference version of that.
All right, Ryan, thank you. We'll bring on Ryan Conlon for his question now.
Hi, Mr. Schusen. So I just wanted to ask you, as college basketball progresses and March Madness starts to near, what are some storylines that you're looking forward to in that sport?
Well, to me, the biggest storyline of college basketball so far this year is that everybody in the top 10 keeps losing.
Yeah.
So to me, it is, I mean, obviously the NCAA tournament is built on being unpredictable, or like that's why we call it Cinderella stories, or teams that make a Cinderella run. You get teams that are, double-digit seeds in the Final Four, so it's already unpredictable. I don't know how you predict it this year, because, there's no dominant teams. All of these teams in the top 10 keep reaching the top 10, and then once in the top 10, lose. And I don't even know how much of it you can call upsets. Watching Kansas lose again last night at K-State to a team that I think was below 500 in the league before they beat them last night. So, to me, that's the fun of the NCAA tournament, especially this year, is how unpredictable I think it's going to be, because literally anything can happen because all of these teams are so are so vulnerable.
Maybe if you had to, I know obviously you just said anything could happen, unpredictability aspect of it, but if you had to pick one team that you would be most confident in going into the tournament, what team would that be?
If I had to say right now, I would probably pick North Carolina, but that's still cautionary. I don't know that there's any team that I'm going to, like, a lot of times you'll get your bracket and you'll just immediately write a team into the Final Four because you just and usually that's the first team that loses, right? Because that's how much you know. I don't know that there's any, even of the 1 seeds this year, that I will just straight shot to the Final Four, be that confident that we'll make it. So I would say North Carolina right now, but I would probably couch that with I don't know that there's any team that I'm that confident in.
Thank you.
All right, Conlon, thank you. We'll bring on Kelvy for his question. Kelvy, go ahead.
Hello, Mr. Susan. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. So I know this year, especially in college basketball, that there are many upsets.
We're just talking about that,
like
yes.
last night against Kansas State
Yep.
and Kansas, all of that, right? So what do you think is like the biggest upset so far this year?
I mean, there were a couple at the start of the year that were amazing. I don't know that you could pick one because I think every team that's been in the top 10 at some point while in the top 10, it seems, has lost. So, I don't know if it's fair to call all of these losses upsets. I just think there's that much parity. And I think it's going to make the tournament unbelievably fun because of it.
Yeah, I know. The many, like, last year compared seeds from this year, it's very, very different. We got, like, Kansas State, who wasn't even the bracket at all last year, and now they have a chance at making it.
The Big 12 is an amazing league. I mean, the Big 12, as of this past weekend, had a third of the ranked teams in the country were just in that league. So it's that's like playing in the NBA. Like every night you could lose.
Yeah. So another question I have is, who do you think is the most consistent this year in college basketball?
Yeah, we were just talking North Carolina. If I had to pick one team, I would probably lean on them, but maybe UConn. But
UConn's
been really good.
For reigning champs, they've been doing really good.
Really good.
I mean, usually when a champ next season, they kind of just slow up. But
they
UConn,
normally lose some people.
Yeah, they lose some people. They kind of lose their consistency.
Yep.
And this year they actually been number one for what? Maybe the past couple months.
Yep. And I think Kansas is really good too. Just had them last weekend. Arizona, I think, is a team that as the year goes on, will just keep on getting better. There are a bunch of teams where I would not be surprised if they won it all.
Yeah, I know. So what are your thoughts on the roster for UNC this year, having Elliot Kadu, Armando Bacot, especially since Caleb Love leaving Arizona? Do you think that for Caleb leaving, do you think it's a positive?
Yeah, I think they've got the best
effect?
point guard in the country right now, right? I mean, he's playing unbelievable. So that's why they are a very complete team, but there's no team out there that I would look at and say, well, they're the clear-cut number one. I'm going to straight shoot them to the Final Four when I fill out a bracket. Any of these teams could lose.
All right, for my final question, who do you think, in your opinion, from so far how these teams are performing, are going to make at least at the Final Four?
If I had to pick a Final Four, I mean, you have to see a bracket. I would probably go those 4 teams I mentioned. I would go UConn, North Carolina, Arizona, and Kansas. I put them in the Final Four. Now, if all 4 of them got knocked out before the Elite 8, it wouldn't be stunning.
I mean, there are many upsets, and also it's March Madness. Ain't going to happen.
You're right.
You got many upsets. You got maybe Kansas State beating maybe Villanova in the first round. All that. So there are many how you call it, a lot of stuff can happen.
A lot of stuff can happen.
That's all I gotta say.
All right, Kelvy, thank you. Bob, I got one final question for you.
Sure.
This is the debate that we had on a bracket a long time ago. We did a bracket. It took probably 3 or 4 days, right, for us to finish this bracket.
It went on for a while.
So it was a bracket we did on In the Vault last year. So it was best sports cities, right? And my argument was that New York was the best sports city. Is that something that you would agree with in America?
It's hard. We have 9 pro sports teams here. There's always something to talk about. As a guy that used to do sports talk shows, there's no city in America that I would rather do a sports talk show in than New York. We're not a great college sports town. It's just not something we're interested in. It's been a long time since St. John's and Seton Hall and the Big East and whatnot was kind of at the top of the sports landscape here. So,
well, once Boston College left the Big East.
Yeah, right. That sent it tumbling. So, yeah, I mean, as a pro sports town, nothing compares to New York. We have 9 teams.
Yeah.
So I would vote New York.
Okay.
New York lost in the semifinals. There's a 32.
Oh, you're right. I didn't even think of it. I
Yeah.
said I was New York. I was on Pittsburgh because I'm a big Steeler fan.
Well, Pittsburgh made the final.
You're
I
right,
mean,
you're right.
we set up a bracket. It was 32 cities, so we had it bracket styles. So we went through each matchup, and then eventually we crowned the champion. You want to say who the champion was?
Boston.
I mean, if you factor in success of their teams, it's hard to argue.
We factored in a lot of different
Yeah,
things.
they have a parade about every 10 minutes up there, or at least have for the last 15 years.
So I argued for Boston. So we had a bunch of guys on. We had like organized chaos up here. There were times where we had 7 or 8 guys sharing the headsets, debating. And so we got down to the semifinals, and it was Boston versus New York. I think we actually had 9 people here that day. We took the vote.
It's a good rivalry.
And it wound up being 5-4 Boston won. So I was arguing hard for Boston. He was arguing for New York. My argument with Boston, I'm a Red Sox fan. I like New York teams and the other sports, but I'm a Red Sox fan. I can explain that another time.
Yep.
But I think with Boston, because you have 4 teams, it's so intense. And you went to school up there, so you're very familiar with the city. It's so intense. Where New York's so big, and there's so much going on in New York. Not that there's a lot, there's a lot going on in Boston, but it's
also
not
always
like New
split.
York.
We're
and it's
split.
right.
They are unified, so it's different.
Yeah, so that was my argument, that up there, and really most of the other cities, we have Los Angeles, multiple teams, but Boston, it's so intense up there with their teams.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's any city in America sports-wise that's more intense than Boston.
No.
I listen to a lot of Boston sports radio.
Yeah, obviously, New York, we're the volume of teams we have. Philly, Chicago, like they are incredibly intense sports markets as well.
Yeah, and Philly, I think was were they the set?
I think the Final Four was Philly, Pittsburgh, New York, and Boston. I want to say.
Yeah, so Pittsburgh was impressive with 3 teams versus 4 teams at Philly.
Those are all good picks, though.
Yeah, I mean, I won that argument with Boston, fought hard for it. Yeah, but again, just the intensity with those teams up there, and I just
hard to argue.
Yeah. But it was an interesting debate for sure.
Yeah, it's a good argument.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Bob, we thank you for joining us.
Thanks
a
for
lot of fun.
No worries.
Thanks a lot, Bob.
Absolutely.
All was great.
We will see everybody back here tomorrow. Elizabeth versus Union Catholic. Huge game. Very excited for that. So, again, we thank everybody for joining us. Mr. Wischusen, thank you again. And we will see you guys tomorrow.